You're tuning in to Weird Reality, the number one destination for super fans of writers, podcasters, and researchers who challenge you to test the boundaries of your imagination and question that which society considers normal.
Hi, I'm Finley Jones. Welcome to Weird Reality's Special Crime News Bulletin. On June 12, 1978, a convicted rapist and repeat felon by the name of Thomas Yanasak was looking for a woman to abduct around Brunswick, Ohio. When he attempted to take a woman from a local laundromat, she was able to make enough noise by screaming and blowing her car horn that 3 men came to her aid. As Yanasak fled, the men took down his license plate number. The next day, June 13th, around 3 o'clock p.m., Yanasak attempted another abduction at the Conleys in Medina Township. He slashed 2 tires on a woman's car. When she came outside, he was waiting for her. He offered to change the tires, even offering to use his own spares since she only had one. When this woman saw that he was drinking and acting oddly, she returned to the store to call her father, who instructed her to contact the police. The young lady gave a written description of Yanasak along with his tag number to the authorities. He left before the sheriff's deputies arrived on the scene. According to blockparole.com, Yanasak had been attempting to abduct women who had children with them because that made them easier targets. There are official police records of multiple abduction attempts in the days leading up to June 13, 1978. Carol Louise Smith was Yanasak's last act of violence. On that day in June, she was kidnapped at knife point while her son Michael, only 5 years old, watched. Less than an hour later, police found Carol's nude body. That day began with Carol's family shopping for a little red wagon for her and her husband Bill's nephew. They were not able to find what they wanted, so the family returned home so that 2-year-old Jamie could take a nap. This gave Bill an opportunity to rest before his third shift at the steel mill. Carol then took her 5-year-old son Michael, and they went to Brunswick Conley's store to try to find her nephew's gift. Unbeknownst to Carol, Thomas Yanasak had been watching for women at the Brunswick Conley store. He was there long enough for the clerk inside to get suspicious after he saw Yanasak throwing his empty beer cans out of the car. Unfortunately, the clerk was not suspicious enough to call the police at that time and give them the tag number he had written down. When young Carol came out of the store with Michael, events unraveled that would destroy their family. She buckled Michael into the back seat of her car. Yanasak came up behind her as she opened her car door and put a knife to her neck. Carol screamed, but no one assisted her, assuming a domestic violence situation. She was pushed into her car, where Yanasak threatened to kill Michael, who was crying in the back seat. Yanasak told her that he was going to take her, and then he threatened to take Michael too if she didn't comply. Yanasak then held Michael at knife point after instructing Carol to pull his vehicle over to hers. Once the cars were close enough, he jumped out of Carol's car into his own and drove off with her. Michael was left alone in his mother's car. He was eventually able to get out of the car and alert someone inside the store to his mother's kidnapping. The clerk that had previously taken Yanasak's tag number immediately called the police. Less than 1 hour after being taken, Carol's nude body was found. Yanasak violently stabbed Carol 27 times from the chest to her vaginal area and nearly decapitated her. Yanasak slit her open from the neck down, eviscerating her and leaving her organs and intestines outside of her body. In a final act of cruelty, after drinking a few beers, he threw the cans and tabs at and around Carol's body. Yanasak was arrested approximately 45 minutes later at his rental house in Strongsville, Ohio. The car described to police was sitting in the driveway. He was covered in bloody scratches, and Carol's underwear was found in his vehicle. 5-year-old Michael Smith was able to positively identify Thomas Yanasak as the man who took his mother. There were multiple witnesses that saw Yanasak take Carol, including women he had tried to abduct in the days leading to Carol's murder, and the store clerk that took down Yanasak's tag number. Facing this mountain of evidence against him, Thomas Yanasak pled no contest to the crime of aggravated murder. He did not speak during the trial, he showed no emotion, and he did not give any indication of being remorseful. Yanasak's sentence was life in prison. Thomas Yanasak's brutal murder of Carol Smith left a wake of trauma and despair for her family. Michael remembers every detail of that day. He carries the guilt with him over his mother's death. He is forced to relive the details of that day every time Yanasak comes up for parole. Jamie, who was 2 years old at the time, doesn't remember her mother. She relies on other people's stories and photos. Bill, her husband, became consumed with anger after his wife's murder. He took his anger out on his children for years, often telling Michael that it was his fault and that he hated him. Carol's parents intentionally planned a family of 4 because they were both only children. Yanasak took away a child and a sibling when he murdered Carol. For the remainder of their lives, Carol's parents took carnations to Carol's grave every Sunday. They became withdrawn, and their grief and despair remained a constant. Beginning a few months into his life sentence, Yanasak began filing appeals in attempts to have his conviction thrown out, the last as recent as 2019. He is up for parole next month, December 2022. Carol Smith's family is asking for help to keep Yanasak in prison by petitioning the parole board to block his parole. You can visit www.blockparole.com/inmate/Thomas-Yanasak to sign the petition on behalf of Carol's family. Thank you for tuning into this special news bulletin from Wyrd Realities.